Dari Jaya Girivara Dari Jaya Yashoda Nanda Jaya Rajana Ranjana Jaya Yashoda Nanda Jaya Rajana Ranjana Jaya Yashodananda Jaya Prajajana Ranjana Jaya Yashodananda Jaya Prajajana Ranjana Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Vihari 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय नरसिंह भगवान की जय जगन्नाथ बलदेश्वर माई की जय नरसिंह भगवान की जय पंच तत्व की जय षड गोस्वामी की जय गुरु परंपरा की जय श्री गोपाल जी श्री गुरुदेव ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत्. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God Narayana, unto Narana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established. So, Hare Krishna, Prabhupada Mataji, thank you very much for keeping the appointment with Krishna. And today, we will be discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 26th chapter, verse number 19. 3:26:19. So let us recite the verse. Devat kshubita dharminyam swasyam yono parapuman adatta viryam sasuta mahattvam hiranmayam Daivat Kshubita Dharminya Swasyam Yono Parapuman Adatta Viryam Sasuta Mahattattvam Hiranmayam Daivat Kshubita Dharminya Swasyam Yono Parapuman Adatta Viryam Sasuta Mahattattvam Hiranmayam. Anybody would like to recite? Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, may I?
Yes, Baba.
Daivat Shubhita Dharminyam Swasyam Yonau Parapuman Adatta Viryam Sasuta Mahattattvam Hiranmayam.
Thank you. Any Matajis?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Can I read?
Hare Krishna. Yes, Mother, please.
Daivat Kshubita Dharminyam Swasyam Yonau Parapuman Adatta Viryam Sasuta Mahattattvam Hiranmayam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So we'll read the word to word meaning. Daivat, by the destiny of the conditioned souls. Shubhita, agitated. Dharminyam, whose equilibrium of the modes. Swasyam, his own. Yono, in the womb, material nature. Parapuman, supreme personality of Godhead. Adatta, impregnated. Viryam, semen, his internal potency. Sa, she, material nature. Asuta, delivered. Mahattattvam, the sum total of cosmic intelligence. Hiranmayam, known as Hiranmaya. Translation and purport by Divanga Shilpupa. Shilpupa, ki jai. Please hear the translation and purport. After the Supreme Personality of Godhead impregnates material nature with his internal potency, material nature delivers the sum total of the cosmic intelligence, which is known as Hiranmaya. This takes place in material nature when she is agitated by the destinations of the conditioned souls. Purport. This impregnation of material nature is described in Bhagavad Gita, 14th chapter, verse 3. Material nature's primal factor is the Mahattattva, or breeding source of all varieties. This part of material nature, which is called Pradhana, as well as Brahman, is impregnated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and delivers varieties of living entities. Material nature in this connection is called Brahman because it is a perverted reflection of the spiritual nature. It is described in the Vishnu Purana that the living entities belong to the spiritual nature. The potency of the Supreme Lord is spiritual, and the living entities, although they are called marginal potency, are also spiritual. If the living entities were not spiritual, this description of impregnation with the Supreme Lord would not be applicable. The Supreme Lord does not put his semen into that which is not spiritual, but it is stated here that the Supreme Person puts his semen into material nature. This means that the living entities are spiritual by nature. After impregnation, the material nature delivers all kinds of living entities, beginning from the greatest living creature, Lord Brahma, down to the insignificant ant in all varieties of form. In Bhagavad Gita 14.4, material nature is clearly mentioned as Sarva Yonishu. This means that of all varieties of species, demigods, human beings, animals, birds, and beasts, whatever is manifested, material nature is the mother, and Supreme Personality of Godhead is a seed-giving father. Generally, it is experienced the father gives life to the child, but the mother gives its body. Although the seed of life is given by the father, the body develops within the womb of the mother. Similarly, the spiritual living entities are impregnated into the womb of material nature, but the body, being supplied by material nature, takes on many different species and forms of life. The theory that the symptoms of life are manifest by the interaction of the 24 material elements is not supported here. The living force comes directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is completely spiritual. Therefore, no material scientific advancement can produce life. The living force comes from the spiritual world and has nothing to do with the interaction of the material elements. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Om Gyantamarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Mano Abhishtam स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगण रघुनाथामितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखावितांश्च हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धो भयेव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। योऽन्तः प्रविश्य मम वाचम् इमां प्रसुप्तां सञ्जीवयति अखिलशक्तिधरस्वधाम्नाम् अन्यां च हस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणानमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम्। नमो विष्णुपादाय विष्णु निर्विशेषशून्य जय श्री कृष्ण। So Hare Krishna, Bruce Mataji, just hold on, just share that screen. So it's a very nice chapter, is like fundamental principles of material nature. So here the purport, the first line Prabhupada says, no, this impregnation of material nature is described in Bhagavad Gita, 14th chapter, verse 3. So I just took out the points from that. Let us see what Prabhupada says in the 14.3 purport. Prabhupada says, this is an explanation of the world. Everything that takes place is due to the combination of Kshetra and Kshetrajna, the body and the spirit soul. This combination of material nature and the living entity is made possible by the Supreme God himself. The Mahat Tattva is the total cause of the total cosmic manifestation. And that total substance of the material cause, in which there are three modes of nature, is sometimes called Brahman. Now, Prabhupada says here in the 14.3 purport, the Supreme Personality, he impregnates the total substance. And thereby, the innumerable universes becomes possible. So this total material substance, that is the Mahat Tattva, is described as Brahman in the Vedic literature. Mundaka Upanishad 1.1.19. Tasmad etat Brahma Nama Rupam Annam cha jayate. So the Supreme Person impregnates that Brahman with the seeds of the living entities. See, the 24 elements, beginning from earth, water, fire, and air, are all material energy. And they constitute what is called Mahat Brahma, or the great Brahman, the material nature. See, Prabhupada very nicely explains that purport. The scorpion lays its eggs in piles of rice. The scorpion lays its eggs in piles of rice. And sometimes it is said that the scorpion is born out of rice. But the rice is not the cause of the scorpion. Actually, the eggs were laid by the mother. Similarly, material nature is not the cause of the birth of the living entities. Very important point. Material nature is not the cause of the birth of the living entities. The seed is given by the Supreme Personality of God. And they only seem to come out as products of material nature. So thereby, every living entity, according to its past activities, has a different body created by this material nature, so that the entity can enjoy or suffer according to his past deeds. So the Lord is the cause of all manifestations of living entities in this material world. See, spoke about the 24 elements, right? So let us see what are and also the pradhana. See, the pradhana is the unmanifest three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. The three subtle elements, they constitute the subtle body. And the five gross elements constitute the outward body. See, there, we'll just read out what are those 24 elements. See, the living being has 5 knowledge acquiring senses and 5 working senses. And each of which relates to one of the 5 elements of these, right? So the pradhana is the false ego, intelligence, and mind. There are 5 gross elements: ether, air, fire, water, earth. Then what are the 5 sense objects? Sound, touch, sight, taste, and smell. Then 5 knowledge acquiring senses: ear, skin, eye, tongue, nose. And 5 working senses: voice, legs, arms, reproductive organs, and evacuating organs. So these are the 24, right? And then Mahat Tattva. These are Mahat Tattva. See, now the question is, and then comes the soul and the super soul. See, now the question is, how does one go to Param Dhama? Can you go to Param Dhama by performing austerities? No. Brahmaloka you can go performing austerities, tapasya and all. But in order to go to the Param Dhama, which is beyond this material nature, you have to become a devotee of Krishna. You have to surrender to the Lord. That is a qualification to go to Param Dhama. So this is the Sankhya philosophy is the analytical study. What is that analytical study? The analytical study explains first the material nature. And the purpose of Sankhya is not only just to analyze the material nature, but through this analysis, we'll come to a point of understanding the spiritual nature. Generally, Sankhya analyzes material nature with the 24 considerations. So, there are 5 elements, right? 5 elements are earth, water, fire, air, and ether. 5 senses: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and touch. 5 objects of the senses: form, taste, smell, sound, touch. So these are the 5 objects of the senses. And then 5 working senses: hands, legs, belly, anus, and genitals. So 20. Then the 3 subtle senses: mind, intelligence, and false ego. Then the consideration is Mahat Tattva. So the sum total, the basic ingredient of material creation, right? So the finest material element, Mahat Tattva, from which this material nature became manifested. Now, after the Mahat Tattva, there is an observer. This material nature is there, but someone is witnessing the material nature, observing the material nature. That is I. So I did not come into this 24, right? So I is different. So the material nature has been analyzed by these 24 considerations. But the I couldn't be found in these. So this I is the 25th consideration. And this I is non-material. And this I is none other than the soul. And then the supreme soul or super soul is the 26th. So the main point is, what Sankhya is doing is that Sankhya is taking us beyond the material nature. And that is the purpose of Sankhya. See, in Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna briefly gives the essence of Sankhya, just in one verse. Actually, there are 2 verses. Krishna is establishing that Sankhya in the form of 7.4. Bhumi rapo nulo vayuhu kham mano buddhi revacha ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakriti rashtara. That is 7.4 Bhagavad Gita. So Prakriti here has been directed or analyzed by Bhinna Prakriti Vish Ashtada, 8 elements. Bhinna Prakriti Ashtada. Then he's saying, Apareyam Mitastvanyam Prakritim Vidhi Me Param Jiva Bhutam Mahabaho Yayedam Dharyate Jagat, 7.5. So this is inferior nature of mind. But beyond this inferior, there is a superior element, supreme consideration, Jiva Bhutam, living entity. So the living entities are not a product of this material nature. Living entities are coming from Para Prakriti, that is Prakritim Vidhi Me Param. So this is the point. So the purpose of Sankhya is actually to transcend the material nature and come to spiritual nature through knowledge, jnana. And that jnana is this analytical study. So this branch of jnana is known as analytical study. So otherwise, see, we cannot understand, or how do we understand intellectually? How do we conceive the existence of spiritual sky? See, somebody may say that there is a spiritual world, spiritual sky. Now, how do we get to know about the spiritual sky? How do we get to the knowledge of the existence of the spiritual sky? So that is the purpose of Sankhya. So, like, analyze the material nature. Oh? So, you'll come to a point when you'll see that there is something other than matter, something that is beyond matter, and that is the soul. So, the soul must have come from somewhere else because soul is not matter. So, the whole matter has been analyzed up to the point of Mahatattva. But soul was not there. The soul is beyond Mahatattva. Soul is beyond material experience. So, this is the knowledge. And when one becomes situated in knowledge, then he aspires to get out of the material nature. So knowledge by itself is not enough. So we have to come to the spiritual actuality. So this is the beauty of this point to understand. See, in this purport, Prabhupada mentions about the pradhana, right? So in the 10th verse of this chapter, Prabhupada says in the purport, the Lord points out material nature in its subtle stage, which is called pradhana. And he analyzes this pradhana. See, the explanation of pradhana and prakriti is that pradhana is subtle. It is undifferentiated sum total of all material elements. Although they are undifferentiated, one can understand that the total material elements are contained therein. We just saw the 24 elements, right? So pradhana is distinct from Brahman because in Brahman there is no existence of the material modes of nature. So one may argue that the Mahatattva is also different from pradhana because in the Mahatattva there are manifestations. So the actual explanation of pradhana is given here. See, when the cause and effect are not clearly manifested, avyakta, the reaction of the total elements does not take place. That stage of material nature is called pradhana. Therefore, the condition of material nature immediately previous to its manifestation is called pradhana. Before Krishna starts, all the ingredients are readily available. But only when the Krishna's glance comes in, it starts manifesting, So before that, whatever ingredients are lying there, that is not called as pradhana. Now, Prabhupada mentions in the purport, material nature, this is in the current words, you can just see in the screen, right? Material nature in this connection. See, the first paragraph, last line. Material nature in this connection is called Brahman because it is a perverted reflection of the spiritual nature. What is this perverted reflection which we have to see, right? See, whatever we are seeing in this middle world, the origin is in Krishna. But here in the middle world, it is perverted. That is the only difference. See, just like a tree. So a tree, original tree is standing erect. Near there's a river by that side of the tree. So, but when you see the perverted reflection of the tree, everything is topsy-turvy, right? Upside down. So you have seen the reflection of the tree. So this upside down side, right? So when the upside of the tree becomes downside, that is called perverted reflection. So this material world is perverted reflection of the spiritual world. It is false in the sense because it is reflection. See, otherwise exactly the same thing are there in the spiritual world. Urdhva moolam adashakam ashwatam avyayam vidu. 15.1 Bhagavad Gita. You will find in the 15th chapter. Urdhva moolam. So this material world, origin, moolam means root, is upside because it is reflection. So this tree is erect and this is reflection. So the root has gone upside. So this is the problem. That is the perverted reflection, what Prabhupada is mentioning here. If you want, I think if you read the purport of 15.1, can get more understanding of it. See, we should always maintain a happy disposition even while faced with so many difficulties. See, there are in each and everyone's life, several trying circumstances in our life. But we should always be prepared to face it and have full faith that Krishna is the supreme controller and he knows what is best for us. See, worst comes first. If not anything else, keeping our mood always happy and peaceful gives us a sound and healthy body. So this is very simple and practical, and which we can practice in our own life. So it doesn't need so much philosophy or any special ability, right? All we need is a simple and straightforward attitude with no malice towards any other living entities, no envy, jealousy, right? So we can see very positive results in no time if we simply practice this attitude in our life as well. What was that? Keeping our mood always happy and peaceful, very important. But to practice this attitude, we have to first of all have firm faith in Lord Krishna, who ultimately is the controller of everything, right? Then automatically simple and straightforward nature follows. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 2.66, Nasti buddhira yuktasya, nacha yuktasya bhavana, nacha bhavata shantir, ashantasya kutha sukham. One who is not connected with the Supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? So in the first line of the purport, Prabhupada makes a punching statement. Unless one is in Krishna consciousness, there is no possibility of peace. Being in Krishna consciousness means accepting Krishna's supreme authority. Understood? Being in Krishna consciousness means accepting Krishna's supreme authority. As soon as we accept this, then we have no reason to become unnecessarily agitated. No need to get agitated over anything that may come our way. Then automatically peace and happiness enter our life. See, the nature of this material world is to drag us down. So we should not give in to the tricks of material nature. Our only shelter is Krishna. Krishnam vinaka gatihi. And we should have complete faith that he will do what is best for us. What he gives, we accept. And what he doesn't give, we do not accept. See, Srimad Bhagavatam Srimad Bhagavatam clearly explains how the pure Jivatma is conditioned by material nature. At the same time, the liberated souls are not affected by material nature. When they are in the same material world with us, they are also there. Pure devotees also, but they are not affected. But conditioned souls are affected. So in Bhagavatam 3:27-19, Mother Devavati inquires Kapil Deva as to how, even though the soul is the passive performer of all activities, how can there be freedom for the soul as long as material nature acts on him and binds him? So the Prabhupada explained this passive nature. He says, actually, as soon as a living entity puts himself under the control of the modes of material nature, his acts are influenced by the qualities of material nature, and he becomes passive. If we meditate on this point, we can ask, how the Jivatma puts himself in the material condition? We can find the answer for this in Karma Muni's prayers to the Lord in Bhagavatam 3:21-20, where he says, my dear Lord, although it is not your desire, you manifest this creation of gross and subtle elements just for our sensual satisfaction. So let your causeless mercy be upon us. For you have appeared before us in your eternal form, adorned with a splendid wreath of tulsi leaves. So as a pure Jivatma, we have minute independence to think and desire anything but the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna is the final authority to sanction or deny our desires. So the above translation clearly explains the reason how and why we come to this material world. One's own desire puts himself into this material world because we are desires, and it was separate from Krishna. Why only Krishna should enjoy? You should enjoy separately from Krishna. So that's why we are put in this material world. So for every material desire of ours, there is a body ready for us. So now you're desiring something, your body is there in the assembly line. It's being created. So more and more desires, more and more bodies, and more one birth and death, cycle of birth and death, again and coming and going. So we should be desireless. But that is not possible, right? Prabhupada says in the purpose of Bhagavad Gita, desireless means to be in Krishna consciousness means desireless. Otherwise, you cannot be desireless. Soul is active. You have to be active. So devotional service, bhakti. My Guru Maharaj always insists, you may be in the world, but you should not be of the world. You may be in the world, but you should not be of the world. Just like the example of a lotus flower, right? It is in the muddy waters, but nothing affects it, right? So the statement from Srila Prabhupada explains our connection with material nature. That is, by association with material nature alone, one does not become conditioned. Very important. By association with material nature alone, one does not become conditioned. Conditioned life begins only after one is infected by the modes of material nature. So infection by the modes of material nature is nothing but the false identification of oneself with the material body. We identify with our body, that's why we are infected. Now, false ego means not only the false identification of oneself with the material body and the material world as its permanent place, but one has to understand the real identity, the spirit soul, as the eternal servant of Krishna. Now, how can we practically understand that we are eternal servants of Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna while we are struggling in the modes of material nature? Lord Kapil Deva very clearly answers for this question in Bhagavatam 3:27-21. He says, Shri Bhagavanuvacha Animitta Nimittena Swadharmena Malatmana Tivrayamai Bhaktyacha Shruta Samvrittaya Chiram. He said, one can get liberation by seriously discharging devotional service unto me and thereby hearing for a long time about me or from me. Very nice. One can get liberation by seriously discharging devotional service unto me and thereby hearing for a long time about me or from me. By thus executing one's prescribed duties, there will be no reaction and one will be free from the contamination of matter. Very important words, 3:27-21. So Kapil Deva clearly knows our imperfect position. See, we are not serious to follow the instructions of Guru, Prabhupada, and Krishna when we are not in the association of devotees. That's why he stressed one has to do devotional service seriously. To do devotional service, one has to consistently hear the glories of Supreme Personality of God Krishna for a long time. So hearing process includes reading process also. Hearing doesn't mean only going, it also includes reading. So when we read Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, we're actually hearing the instructions of the Supreme Lord and his devotees. And we have to think why he mentioned long time. Everybody say long time. Since we are conditioned now, it will take long time to practically purify our consciousness by doing devotional service. So once our consciousness has been purified, then we do not need to worry about the time, because eternally we will be associated with Guru and Krishna by doing devotional service with care and seriousness. See, in the 16th verse of this chapter, 3:26-16, Bhavam Paurusham Prahu Kalam Eke Yato Bhayam Ahankara Vimudasya Kartu Prakritim Iyusha. Very important words. I just thought of pointing it out. See, this bhaya is the main element. Bhaya, fear. Because everywhere, because this material universe is full of darkness, bhaya element is there. And it is the effect of time, kala. Because everybody is going to be destroyed. So that's why everybody is afraid. So this is a fact, the time factor. You cannot avoid. See, nobody can avoid. See, we may deny the existence of Krishna, but you can never deny time. Your hair is bound to grow grey. That is without fail. And we don't want it, but it comes, right? So that is the influence of Krishna. We resist Krishna, we don't want. We resist him. His prabhavam is there everywhere. Prabhavam, what is the meaning? Influence. Can't avoid the influence of Krishna. We do anything and everything is always under his direction. Always. He knows what we are doing. So we cannot avoid. Mata parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya. So this is prabhavam. So everywhere, Krishna's influence is there. And once we understand this prabhava, then we become submissive to him. There is no other way that we can refute Krishna. So always submission has got to be there. Submission to the scriptures. submission to the elders, submission to whoever is ahead of us. That submission helps us. As soon as you contact material nature, this ego becomes powerful and we become vimudha. So that is our position. So this is the main thing, right? See, Krishna's influence is always there in the time factor. And this is universal truth. Universal truth means nobody can deny. That is universal. Nobody can refute. See, everybody is under the influence of the time factor. So the influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is felt in the time factor. And this is Bhagavatam. This is Prabhupada's language. And this is Krishna's appearance. This way Krishna appears in our life. And this is the appearance. He is very powerful. Nobody knows. Atyakramat. And he surpasses unknowingly, imperceptibly. He just passes away. Time, right? So let us try to be conscious of this. That's why this verse is very important before you study Bhagavatam. So 3:26:16, right? What is the title of the chapter? Fundamental Principles of Material Nature. And this is the fundamental principle. So as soon as you are conscious of Krishna, then you can never be wrong. As soon as you are conscious of Krishna, you can never be wrong. Because we are always conscious of Krishna. So the influence of Supreme Personality of Godhead is felt in the time factor. So easy to understand the fear, right? So once you know the cause of the fear, you can remove the cause of the fear. The influence of time factor we cannot avoid. It must be there. And this is the speciality of Bhagavatam. The principles of Bhagavatam can never be denied by anybody by material qualifications. Maybe the President of America, he is also getting old. He is also running out of the time. See, they have fixed time for him also, right? That he can contest only for one more term. He's already there, he can come again once more. Not again, he's limited by time factor. So this is the influence of time. And if you have to behave in this frame of Kala, how can you behave rationally? This is the point, and we have to ask ourselves. We are given certain time to behave. And in that, we have to behave. And that behavior is also influenced by Kala. So you are 20 years old. You have this duty. You have that duty. So you have to do your things very immaculately well. So under different false arguments, we are very expert in wasting our time. Not an excuse. Don't waste your time. Kalakshepona kartavya kshinam ayuhu kshane kshane. Every moment the ayuhu is decreasing. That's why don't waste your time. Wasting time is the greatest crime. So it says kalakshepona kartavya yamasya karuna nasti. Yamana doesn't have any mercy. Kartavyam hari kirtana. If you don't want to do anything, just keep the kartal and sing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Or sing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That's it. That is the beginning and the end of everything. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so very kind that has given you the beginning and the end in your own hands. And even then, we are so unfortunate. With all the atmosphere around us, we are neglecting this and following so many other things which have no meaning at all. It is also stated in Bhagavatam 11:2-37. Bhayam dvitiya abhiniveshata syat. Dvitiya refers to matter, which is beyond spirit. Now, matter is a secondary manifestation of spirit. For matter is produced from spirit. Just as the material elements described are caused by the Supreme Lord, body is also a product of the spirit soul. Therefore, the material body is called Dvitiya, or the second. One who is absorbed in this second element or second exhibition of the spirit is afraid of death. So when one is fully convinced that it's not this body, there is no question of fearing death, since the spirit soul does not die. If the spirit soul engages in the spiritual activities of devotional service, he is completely freed from the platform of birth and death. His next position is complete spiritual freedom from a material body. So the fear of death is action of Kala, or the time factor, which represents the influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in other words, time is destructive. So whatever is created is subject to the destruction and dissolution, which is the action of time. So time is a representation of the Lord. And it reminds us also that we must surrender to the Lord. The Lord speaks to every conditioned soul as time. He says in Bhagavad Gita that if someone surrenders unto him, then there is no longer any problem of birth and death. So we should therefore accept the time factor as the Supreme Personality of Godhead standing before us. See, fear arises when a living entity misidentifies himself as the material body because of absorption in the external illusory energy of the Lord. Fear arises when a living entity misidentifies himself as the material body because of absorption in the external illusory energy of the. So when the living entity thus, he thereby turns away from the Supreme Lord, he also forgets his own constitutional position as a servant of the Lord. So this bewildering, fearful condition is affected the potency for illusion called Maya. So an intelligent person, he should engage unflinchingly in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, whom he should accept as his worshipable deity and his very life and soul. Very important point to understand. See, in the 7th chapter in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives us a clear idea of his energies, which are non-stop working in this material manifestation, as well as in the spiritual. So what are those two verses? 7.4 in Bhagavad Gita and 7.5. 7.4 is Bhumi Rapo Analo Vayuhu Kham Mano Buddhi Revacha Ahankara iti yamme Bhinna Prakritar Ashtara. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. All together, these 8 constitute my separated material energies. 7.5 is Apareyam Vitastvanyam Prakritim Vidhi Me Param Jiva Bhutam Mahabahu Yayedam Dharyate Jagat. Besides these, O mighty Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mind, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. So, Krishna is given in the 4th verse, 7.4, he has given his 8 energies. 5 are gross and 3 are subtle. This is the basic knowledge. And that is why Bhagavad Gita is regarded as the ABC of spiritual knowledge. This is the basic knowledge. And in this 4th verse, Krishna is clear to give us the 8 material energies. And out of the 8 material energies, he is very clear to tell us that 5 are gross, which we can see, and 3 are subtle, which we cannot see, but we can experience them. And if you remember this, then you remember the whole material manifestation. See, for example, our body is made up of 5 great elements, which are described as Bhumi, Apa, Anala, Vayu, Kham. These are the 5. Bhumi means land, Apa means water, Anala means fire, Vayu means air, and Kham is Akasha, the sky. So these are the 5 great elements. And these 5 great elements we can see. But when we pass away from this body, the body of these material elements has to be left here. We cannot take these 5 elements with us. But apart from these 5 great elements, we have 3 subtle elements. That is mind, intelligence, false ego. So these are no doubt material. Even mind is material, intelligence material, and false ego is also material. But they are subtle, sukshma. See, there are 2 bodies. One is the gross body, which we can see, and it comprises of 5 elements, and subtle body, which we cannot see, but only experience. But these 5 elements, however hard we try, we cannot take with us. And that is why all material things, they don't belong to us. That is the secret of understanding this. Everything has 5 elements. These 5 elements. This table is, for example, I am sitting on a table, chair and table. So the table also has land, water, fire, air, and ether. Having Bhagavatam book, this also is the same thing. These are different names, but in the end, these are the basic elements. House, the apartment, also it has the land, gross land. Then it has water, it has fire, it has air, ether. So every material thing you take, they comprise of these 5 great elements. And these 5 great elements, how hard we try, after death we cannot take it. Because these 5 elements don't belong to us. This we have to understand thoroughly, hammer into our head. They are Krishna's energy. And if Krishna's energy is there, how can we pinch his energy? We cannot. He will not allow us to take all these things. And this is the secret of our spiritual quest. Why we are after these things, that we have to ask. See, we are very correct according to the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita and according to the energies which Krishna has described. That these are my separated energies. 5 great elements and 3 subtle elements. So, the secret is, when we think about these 5 great elements, then these are the gross elements which we can see. I can see the land, I can see the water, I can see fire, I can see air, and I can see ether. So these are the gross elements, and each gross element has a subtle existence. Please hear very carefully, very interesting thing to understand today. So without the subtle existence, the gross element cannot manifest. Now, you start from the sky. That is ether. Ether is the gross manifestation of a subtle quality, which is known as sound. In Sanskrit, it is known as Shabda. So without sound, the ether cannot exist. So now we are speaking here. We are creating ether. As soon as the sound is there, ether is created. And when Krishna's sound is there, it is known as Nada Brahma. And because of Nada Brahma, the whole space is created. So the creation, the root cause of the space is sound. So when the sky is created, when the space is created, the Lord has a glance. He sees the sky. And when he sees the sky, then in the sky there is an agitation. There's agitation. And because of that agitation, air is created. And because the air is created from the sky, ether, because of the glance of the Lord, the air cannot go out of the sky. It has to be in the sky. Because sky is the father and air is the son or daughter or whatever you call. So they cannot go beyond that because it is created from the ether. So air cannot decide, no, I don't want to be in ether, I will go somewhere else. No. No, you cannot do. That is how once the sky is created, we know the quality of sky, is sound. And because air is created from the sky, it inherits its quality, that is sound. So air has the sound. So when the wind blows, we can hear. And again, air has its own quality also, that is touch. It touches our body and we can feel it, that there is air. It touches all the objects in the material manifestation. Touch is a sensation of air. And you may know that underneath our skin, there is a fresh air. And because of that fresh air, we can touch, we feel, So for example, I cannot see at the back, but if anyone touches the back, I immediately know something is touching. That is the play of air in the body. If there had not been air, we would not feel the touch. And if there is anything wrong in our body or in some limb of our body, then we cannot feel the touch because the air is disturbed. And this is how our existence, our touching sensation, our sound, everything coming from Krishna. It is the energy of Krishna. That is the secret to understand. And as soon as we understand this point, then the supremacy of Krishna is firmly established in our mind. So this is the point we should understand. Now, as soon as you understand that ether is energy and ether has a subtle quality sound, and you know that air is created from the ether by the glance of the Lord, so he is the cause of creation. Sarva Karana Karanam. Then you will have unflinching faith in Krishna. And that is why Prabhupada has given us this process. That by regular attendance Srimad Bhagavatam classes, your bhakti, your devotional service becomes firm. So this is a reason to understand these things. And the more we study these things, the more devotional service becomes unflinching. See, the more and more we get into it, then without devotional service, there is nothing you can realize. And because we realize that without devotional service of the Lord, we cannot survive for a single second, that is why our devotional service becomes continuous, unbroken. So now we saw 2 qualities, right? Shabda, sound, and touch. That is touching sensation. It is known as sparsha. So then from sky, that is from ether and air, the third element is created by the agitation of these both elements by the glance of the Lord. So Lord is the main reason, Sarva Karana Karana. And that is the meaning of Sarva Karana. Sarva means all, Karana means cause, and Karana means all causes. So Lord is the supreme Karana, supreme reason of creation. And as soon as, because of his glance from air and ether, the fire is created. And because the fire is created from air and ether and air, right? It should inherit two qualities, sound and touch. So now, now, there are two qualities in fire. There is sound in fire. Now suppose this table burns, it makes a sound. Building burns, it makes a sound. So there is sound in fire. And you know that fire can touch us. You know the touch of fire? It starts. And then the fire has its own quality again. The third quality, fire has its own quality, that is rupa, form. Suppose the table burns, it takes the form of the table. The house is burning, it takes the form of the house. This is known as rupa. It also, see, suppose if body is burning, it will take the form of a body. Suppose if a house burns, right, it takes the form of a house. So it has a form. Always the burning has a form. So this is the third quality, that is sound. First is ether is sound, then touch, then form. These are three qualities in fire. Then we come to the fourth element. What is it? From ether, the air was created. From ether and air, fire was created. And now we have three elements, that is ether, air, and fire. So what is created from this? Water is created. And again, for the creation of water, there should be a glance. The Lord's glance is there. So by only seeing, the Lord creates. So now with this same, because of his glance, water is created from these three elements. Now, because water is created from these elements, it inherits these three qualities. What are those? It is going to be in sequence: sound, touch, and form. So water has its own quality, that is rasa, taste. It is known as taste, the taste in water. So as soon as we remember water, means we remember these four qualities, that is sound, touch, form, and taste. And in Sanskrit, they are beautiful words: Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa. And then all these four combined together with the glance of the Lord to produce the earth, which is full gross. It is a lump, gross lump of earth, which we can see very well. And because the earth is created last, it has the four qualities already. That is Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa. And then earth has its own quality, that is smell. Fragrance of the earth is again Krishna. Earth has a fragrance. That's why Tulsi leaves takes the fragrance which is required for Tulsi, and it smells like Tulsi. And because this is Gandha, this smell is already present in the earth. And this fragrance is exhibited in different forms. Suppose there is a mango tree, it will have mango fragrance. Banana tree, banana fragrance. Grape plant, grape fragrance. And these different fragrances will come out of the earth. So this is the main quality of the earth. So this is a very important thing. So we saw how much first created the ether, and it has the quality of, what is the quality of ether? Anybody?
Sound.
Sound, right? Sound, very good. Ether is sound. So from ether, air is created. Air has sound as well as touch, right? So from ether and air, fire was created. The fire has quality of sound, touch, and rupa, form. And from these three, water was created. So it has already the quality of sound, touch, form, and rasa, taste. And from all these four, earth was created. So it has got the sound, touch, form, taste, and then gandha, fifth one. So it's a very important thing. No, as soon as we come to these five things, that is sound, touch, form, taste, and smell, if you really think very seriously about these things, they are our sense objects. So I'll stop here. So more and more things can be discussed, but these are very important things with regard to material manifestation, material nature, and how the whole creation came into being. Now our senses are utilized. So we saw the acquiring knowledge, acquiring senses, sense objects, all this beautifully given in Bhagavatam. So we go through Bhagavatam, we can understand very thoroughly. So thank you very much for giving this opportunity, for giving this, glorifying the Lord and trying to understand with our whatever capacity we have. And I try to share it with all of you. So Hare Krishna, Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai, and Tagore, Hare Krishna. Anything to share? Then go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Pranams.
So the scientists say that everything has come from Big Bang, the Earth and everything, right? So now you have explained us how the Earth has come. So very nice to hear that.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank
So
you.
it's the theory of Big Bang is proved wrong.
Oh, yes. Prabhupada has smashed everything, no? So Bhagavatam
Yes.
gives answer to all the questions. Thank you, Prabhu. If you have any questions, anything to share, can go ahead. Otherwise, we'll stop here.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Wasting time is the greatest crime. Very nice, Prabhu point.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank
Correct.
you,
You're
Prabhu.
right. Thank you, Mother. Hare Krishna.
Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mother. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Dhanyavad Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Mataji's. Vancha kalpa tarubhich kripa sindhu bhaiyacha. Patisanam pavane vivashtu. Anantakudi Vaishnavanda ki jai. Prabhupada. Hari Bol. We'll stop here, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, you are the host today.
Yeah, I saw that. I will do that. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Thank you, Balaji Prabhu. Hare Bol. Hare Krishna.